I didn't realize there's such a dad wound in most men's lives. And I would have never known that until I started doing men's ministry with Legacy Outfitters, working with men. And I always tell guys that, look, man, if you don't affirm your daughters, she's going to get that affirmation somewhere else. And it's not going to be good at all. Men got to start talking to men the way men should talk to men. Quit pacifying everything. Let's be direct. Yeah. Let's quit moving around the subject, and so there's plenty enough guys who are not meeting the needs of their families, and I believe we're all called to be priests of our homes, and we're not doing it. We're not doing a good job of that. We need you to continue to mentor, and your time is not up. Your time is up when you die. Look, men need a purpose, and men need to know that they're needed. And I'm telling you, you need it. Sometimes we have to go outside the church to reach people. Just because we build these buildings or just because we have church doesn't mean people are going to come.
Doesn't necessarily mean that if they're there that they've surrendered their life to Christ either.
Correct. So our whole premise is encouraging men to be better husbands, better fathers, to be the men God called us to be. Our churches do a great job with our women and children, but they do not do a great job with our men. They have programs. They have all kinds of things for the women and children. Okay, teenagers, they do a great job with that too as well. But why wouldn't you use these men's passions to build different things? And that's kind of what we've done. Now, look, I'm not criticizing. I just wish that they would, because I'm thriving right now because men are hungry to learn how to lead their families. We need our churches to step up and hire men's ministers and have them come in and do stuff. I need to dwindle. I'm fine with that. There's enough. And again, with Legacy Outfitters, we're not really going after the church guys anyway. We're going after the unchurched, the ones that struggle going to church and or been hurt by it. Really, we use hunting and fishing as a tool. It's the commonality that we have and that we use because that's our passions and we love doing it. And we love hunting and fishing and we love being in the outdoors. But it's also about teaching men how to have spiritual conversation and opening up and talking about their hurts. And, we weren't created to walk this journey alone, and so men need to understand that. There's nothing difficult about Legacy Outfitters and what we're doing. Yeah. It's all relational and just caring about people, loving people where they are, not judging them. That's the one thing I really appreciate about this ministry. There's no judgment on each other.
All right. Well, welcome to the first podcast. I want to thank you for being here. I have Jeff Fritscher with me. Jeff is the founder and really the head of the Legacy Outfitters men's ministry. And he has a incredible life, an incredible story. And it's really encouraging to see how Jeff and the ministry have been used by God so powerfully in the lives of so many men. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Dean. Thanks for having me. Always looking forward to talking about myself. No, I'm kidding.
So tell us, you've done Legacy Outfitters for 20 years, over 20 years.
Yeah, 20 plus years.
And it's been an incredible ministry. I know the story, but I'm just grateful to be a part of helping tell the story. And yeah, just, we'd love to hear your life, your story, not just the story of the ministry, but the story of you, Jeff Fritscher, and how the Lord brought a man from South Louisiana all the way out to Waco, Texas. And so why don't you just jump into, your life? Where were you born?
Yeah, well, I was born in New Orleans and in 1962. Man, that sounds like I'm an old guy. I guess I am getting older. But, I grew up in a time where I just loved the outdoors. From the first time my mom took me on a fishing trip, I was 5 years old, and we went for my birthday, as a matter of fact, and I caught my first fish. And after that, I was hooked. And since then, we made that a tradition. She took me fishing every year on my birthday, and I still fish. I mean, if June 1st rolls around, everybody knows where I'm at. I'm fishing.
So that was with your mother, not with your...
No, my dad got seasick, so whenever he got in the boat, he didn't like the rocking of the boat or anything, but my dad took me hunting.
Yeah.
And my dad really didn't enjoy hunting as much.
What was the first? How old were you when he first took you hunting?
I was probably about 10 years old, and he took me squirrel hunting and shot my first squirrel, so.
Squirrel hunting is actually one of the specialties at the Legacy Outfitters
it's
banquet.
It is. I mean, listen, it's a South Louisiana thing, but we grew up, that's what most folks who grew up in Texas cut their teeth on their first hunting experience is dove hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Ours was squirrel hunting. Matter of fact, there's a lot of places in South Louisiana where they shut the schools down on Friday and call it Squirrel Day. They moved the football game, Friday night football games, to Thursday night. Can you imagine Texas doing that? And then because nobody would show up, they're in the woods camping out and waiting for the opening day of squirrel season, which is always the first Saturday in October. And so
That's wild.
And I know when it is squirrel season. My squirrel clock inside tells me I get depressed sometimes if I'm thinking, man, what's wrong with me today? Oh, it's opening squirrel season. I mean, I'm living here in Texas, and it's not a thing.
What do you shoot a squirrel with? Because I just imagine a squirrel exploding if you shoot it.
Yeah, and that's the cool part. But anyway, actually, we hunt them in the early year when all the leaves are still on the trees. We use shotguns. 16 gauge is kind of the old man's gun, and then from there we get 22s, but I shoot a 22 mag, but I hunt pretty much year round with 22 mag when I'm squirrel hunting. So I know it kind of jumped. We already squirreled, rabbit squirreled already to another direction. It didn't take long. Just talking about squirrel hunting, I get excited. Yeah. I had a squirrel lease. And when I moved to Texas, somebody said, "What's the hardest thing that you did when you left South Louisiana?" I said, "I left my squirrel lease. It was a $95 squirrel lease. It was the best squirrel lease I ever had." "You had a squirrel lease?" "I did. Just like y'all got deer leases, we had squirrel leases." And I love hunting with dogs too. I had a friend that had a dog, and man, it's a blast.
That's awesome.
But you learn how to hunt. You learn how to stalk. You learn how to. Squirrels are not as easy as you think they are to shoot. I've got people all the time say, "Oh man." If you walk by one squirrel, you walk probably by 5 or 6 squirrels because they're aware, they see you. So, so I grew up fishing and had a passion for it.
Mm-hmm.
And, but it was interesting that my dad would take me and then we deer hunted, of course. We were 12 years old. We were hunting in the swamp down in Lafitte, Louisiana. And we hunted with dogs and the swamp with 16 gauges and 12 gauges, and we slugged hunted because in the marsh it's just too thick, so there's not a whole lot of opening, so a rifle wouldn't really do you any good.
Sure.
And so you needed a quick. We always loaded slug, buckshot, and slug, or slug, buckshot. It didn't matter what recipe you had coming behind it, but yeah, I killed my first deer when I was 12. And it was pretty good. We celebrated. I had my cousins with me, and they all thought it was a cool thing. It was a small buck and barely had antlers. It was a spike. Of course, my dad, he's a carver. He carved some antlers and put it on every time everybody got to where I was. I had this big old rack carved with sticks and stuff. And so, so I grew up with a dad that was always joking around and pretty comical. So
you have a pretty good relationship with your folks.
I did. I had a good relationship with my mom and my dad. My dad was a professional fighter. He was a prize fighter out in New Orleans and probably fought in the late 50s and early 60s. And
what was his name?
Is Mike Fritscher. And, he fought welterweight. And so, he was pretty well known in the New Orleans area for his fighting. And, and so, he was a lot of fun. I mean, he loved us and nurtured us. And so, we grew up with a dad being present in the house.
Yeah.
I know the great, the journalist, Howard Cosell, once said of my father in an interview, once said that he was a great gym fighter, but he was also a great father who was present in the home. As busy as he was. I think about him. He passed a couple of years ago with the boxer's dementia, but a couple of years ago. But I was thinking about him the other day, thinking how busy I am right now. And man, he was just as busy, but he was present with us. And so we're very fortunate to have mom and dad. Now, mom was a spiritual leader at the house for the first couple of years of our lives. She's the one who took us to church. My father wasn't a believer at that time. And, he was searching, but he wasn't. Lord was dealing with him. But
was your mom always a Christian?
She became a believer when she was 12 years old.
Yeah.
She became a Christ follower then. And then, and she had a rough patch, a rough childhood. She was abandoned when she was a little girl, and her brother and sister got put in an orphanage, and so she came. It was tough. It was tough on her, but Lord just put her in the right home. She got to live with her grandmother and my great aunt, and great aunt's the one who took her to church as a little girl. That's where she found Christ. And so as a result, we grew up in a Christian home. She would take us to church. And then finally, he was 27 years old. My dad was young. I mean, my mom and dad were married when they were 17 years old, and so they...
It was a different time back then.
Yeah, I mean, 14 is when they met, and they were love at first sight. And 14, 17 married, and then, 60-something years that, married.
Yeah.
And so my dad showed us how to... nurtured us. He nurtured us, so therefore we know how to nurture our kids. And also he was a great husband. He was faithful to my mom, and so he treated her as a princess. I mean, he really did. He really took to heart that God created her as a special gift for him, and he did. But she's the one who kind of put him in that direction of what about coming to Christ and. So
when you say she was treated like a princess, I'm sure that had a great impact on you and how you treat your wife. But what did that look like in the house?
Yeah, well, in the house, I mean, you know what? He wasn't overbearing with her, but my father also did the dishes, man. I mean, we'd see him washing the dishes and putting them up. We saw him cleaning. Not during the day, but when he came home from work, I mean, he started building houses after his pro career, and we saw him, just helping her, and so he recognized it was hard raising kids. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and we're fortunate with that, and so he helped her, and so not only that, but he showed affection toward her, and we saw that, and so I think the biggest thing was the way that he was faithful to her.
Yeah.
And
60-something years, huh?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so we're fortunate to watch that.
Yeah.
And so my brother, I'm the middle. I got an older brother that's a preacher. And then, and I've been ordained when I was young too. And I have a younger sister that's 5 years younger than me. So I'm in the middle. And people always say, well, was your dad a bivocational preacher? I said, oh, no, he was not a preacher. He beat the hell out of people. Me and my brother just scared out of him. So that's probably basically it. And so, but he did. He was genuine, and he was a giver.
Yeah.
So he was a champion in the home. Man.
Giver in what way?
He gave his time to people. He was kind to people, and he gave financially. I watched him give to people and with no expectations of ever receiving that money back.
Yeah.
And he was always giving. He was always grateful. He had a grateful spirit about him. He was thankful for where he was and where the Lord had brought him and placed him. And he was grateful for my mom and us kids. He was a deep thinker. He loved to, just get out in the sun and lay out in the sun. I don't know if that was his Italian roots a little bit, but just loved the sun.
Yeah.
And he would think about us, because he would tell us, he'd say, hey, I've been thinking about you today, and, wondering how y'all were doing.
I'm sure as a child that felt amazing to have a father that was constantly letting you know, reaffirming that I think about you. You're not just,
Well, Dean, I thought everybody had a dad like that, but I didn't realize there's such a dad wound in most men's lives. And I would have never known that until I started doing men's ministry with Legacy Outfitters, working with men. And so we never had that dad wound. We never had the mom wound. A lot of guys have a mom wound as well. And but they were present in the home, man. he went to everything that we did. And there was a few things, one or two things that I don't think he was there, but because of work and stuff. But for them, I can't recall when that was,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure there was because you can't make everything, but he, even when we were preaching, man, he'd come travel up to hear us preach, and he was proud of us, my brother and for me, and so he would listen to whatever sermons that we would have preached, and he would play them back and forth, and and then he was my sister. She was the apple of his eye, man. He took her everywhere, and she's is a beneficiary of a father who nurtured his daughter.
Yeah.
And so when she was married, when she got married, I got a great brother-in-law. He treats her with great respect, because she probably demands it,
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the way it ought to be.
It ought to be that way, but unfortunately, we have a lot of women out there that are running around just looking for that wound to be healed, or to have those needs met that were never met by a father in the house that reaffirmed who they were.
Right. Yeah. And I always tell guys that, look, man, if you don't affirm your daughters, she's going to get that affirmation somewhere else.
Yeah.
And
it's probably not going to be healthy.
And it's not going to be good at all.
Yeah.
So growing up in New Orleans, it was, I loved it. Of course, being in the 60s and 70s, it was a great place. I was very proud. I know when you come to Texas, Texas folks, they think everything originated out of here, it was created here, everything's bigger and better here, and I get they're proud for being in Texas. And look, I love being here, don't get me wrong, but growing up and being born in New Orleans was a proud thing for me too. I wasn't until the 6th grade till I didn't realize that New Orleans wasn't the state. And a lady asked me one day, we're on vacation, she said, honey, where are you from? I said, I'm from New Orleans. And she said, oh, you're from Louisiana? I said, no, ma'am, I'm from New Orleans. She said, yeah, I know Louisiana's the state in which New Orleans. I said, no, ma'am, you don't understand. This is where I'm from New Orleans. I'm not from Louisiana. And didn't know. So they, chalked it up to public school system in New Orleans. But, anyway, but I grew up in a town called Metairie, right outside of New Orleans, and had a great childhood. Very fortunate, and, that's where I came to Christ at 10 years old. I recognized that I was a sinner. I didn't do anything, out of the ordinary, but I recognized that. And then one day I knew,
was it something that convicted you? How did you, at 10 years old, understand that you were a sinner and needed to be forgiven? Well,
I had a Sunday school teacher because my mom took us to church. And the Sunday school teacher was talking about a man named Jesus who died on the cross for my sin and my sins. And so I knew I was a sinner. I don't think anybody had to tell me. I know I was young, 10, but you still, and so, I just, because I was in church, a lot, I felt that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to receive Jesus in my heart. I think because of the fact that he would die for me, I think that was the thing that I just couldn't get past, that somebody was willing to die for me, for my sins. And it still motivates me to this day. It still pushes me to live my life according to God's ways, because that he went to the cross for me.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what it did for me. I've come to realize now that was just God's grace. I didn't know what grace was at the time, but I do understand it a little bit. I can't really paint that picture. I can talk about grace that God gives us, but until you experience grace, I think is the only time you really understand what grace is.
Yeah.
So I learned that over the years, that grace was free. It was given freely to me. And, it was, there's the things that we all have in common. And I talk about this a lot. First thing is that we all reflect the image of God, every one of us in this world. Second thing is that we're all liars. The Bible says we're sinners and we're liars. And so, which I kind of chuckle about because, puts us all in the same playing field,
Sure.
And then the third thing, and I'd tell you that we all have in common is we all been given a God-given hole, a void. And that's the part where you can't fill it with the world. There's nothing in this world you can fill. And we try sports and we try relationships and education everything in this world we try, the perfect business, the perfect whatever, and it never satisfies that hole, that void in our lives, is because it's
it's insatiable.
It's a God-given hole.
Yeah.
You can only fill it with God and, with Jesus. And so when I came to understand that, I can only experience joy through that filling of Jesus Christ. And so at age of 10, at 14, God really began to deal with my life at a young age. And I knew that ministry was something that I was heading for.
14.
Yeah. I remember him just, speaking to me. Now, and I want to make this clear. I don't want to get everybody, he's one of those, huh? I hear God a lot, throughout my year, but it was just one of those things. It was evident. I think we all at one point or not, or time in our lives, we hear from God. God, he speaks to us, and it wasn't an audible voice. It wasn't like that you and I talking, you hear my voice, but it was as clear as it seemed like it was.
Yeah.
I didn't look around and said, who is that? I just knew God spoke to me and spoke to my heart and said, I want you to be a leader in your Christian faith, and I want you to do this. And I'm like, I don't want to do that at first. I was like, I don't want to do that. That's too much responsibility.
Yeah.
14, I knew it was too much responsibility, man. I just want to be left alone. I just want to, play football and
go hunt, fish
and do all those things. But the Lord said, yeah, but this is what I created you for.
Yeah.
So, and then at 17, I surrendered in the ministry. I had a calling on my life and to go full-time ministry. And so I was pretty excited about that. And
so what did high school look like? Having at 10 years old being saved, 14 years old knowing you want to be in the ministry, what did high school look like?
High school was just like everybody else. It's awkward, it's short-lived. I mean, those 4 years go by pretty quickly.
Yeah, they go by quick.
But I was kind of recruited to go play football and at a school, and so it was
freshman, sophomore.
Yeah, no, my eighth grade year to go into my freshman year.
Okay,
there was freshman, sophomore, junior, senior classes, and so I was like it was a private Catholic school, and my dad said, go take this entrance exam so that they will quit calling me. I go, all right, I can do that, So I went and I just started Xing and, checking things off that I wasn't even paying attention to. I don't know how I even got in. They said I was on the list and, okay, and I passed that. I don't know. That's no way I passed that, So, but anyway, they gave me a call right before two-a-days started in August. Said, hey, well, you're in. I'm thinking, wow, that's amazing. And, but come to find out later in understanding all these things, a lot of things don't make sense in our lives at the time.
Sure.
But it sure started making a lot of sense. That's where he wanted me. And so I made the varsity as a freshman. And so I was playing with the varsity guys. And
what position did you play?
I was playing fullback. I mean, that's the only position I ever played. From the time I was 5 till I was about 21. That's it. I don't know if I'd like to try it to another position, but that's wherever they sat me. I look like a pulling guard now.
Were you pretty big in high school?
I'm the same height I was in the 8th grade.
Okay.
9th grade. I was, I'm not going to say what happened because this is clean TV, clean radio. I mean, but I was about 5'7" and 5'6.5". If I want to tell the truth, on a cloudy day, I'm 5'7". And I was about 180 pounds, and then 185, and then played college ball at 205. But but I also did a lot of other. I played every sport just about, but not in high school. I started kind of just concentrating on football. I even dove on the diving team.
Are you serious?
No, it's
really?
Not cannonballs and not jackknives.
Do you have any pictures of that?
Real diving. There got to be somewhere.
I would love to see them.
I got my ribbons.
I would love to put some of those pictures in this.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. I was diving. I was swimming on a swim team, diving. But I know, and people said diving. Yeah, me and my brother dove on diving teams, and and not from where they throw money in the pool where you dive in there to get it. We actually were in competition. doing 2.5s and inward dives.
That's
and stuff.
impressive.
Well, yeah.
That stuff's not easy.
It's impressive because I know you're looking at me going, how in the world did you do a flip? How did you even get around
Being able
that?
to do a flip at all into a pool
gosh.
is...
I did a 2.5 on a 1 meter board, to be honest with you.
That's impressive.
Well, it impresses me now to think about, that I could do that, but I was much smaller then. I didn't have any fat on me now, man. Time catches up with you. But so we did everything and all the sports, loved them all, and enjoyed all the sports. But football was just something that really just was what I wanted to do. Now, I did box a little bit because of my dad, and he kept me from going that path because of my stature. I'm too short to be my body frame. He knew I would get, that it wouldn't be good. So I got to fight with him. He trained me for a couple of fights, and those were fun days. I'll have to tell that to another story another day.
Heck yeah.
So but yeah, so my story begins at 17 when I really started thinking about it. I wanted to do student ministry. I had some great youth pastors in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy named Jay Wolf and Mike Walker, Mike Toby. These are some great guys that poured into our lives when we were kids. And so and Alan, a guy named Alan Jackson, not the singer. And so the New Orleans Seminary was there in town, and so a lot of these guys would come and work with us, and so I was real blessed to be at that moment. So, and just had a great church. I'm a product of a local church, man. Local church is what brought us to Christ, and so.
Was it a big church? Small church?
It wasn't a mega church by any means, but it was a good sized church. And so we had great student ministries, and so that's kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to go. I was influenced by those great men of God, and I wanted to go back and be a student pastor. So I wanted to skip college, but anyway, I ended up playing ball in college for a year or two before getting hurt, and your desires change a whole lot. So
where'd you go to college at?
I went to Mississippi College, and it was a Division II school. And so, which was a great school for me to play football at.
Yeah.
So,
did you study anything in specific? Was it a seminary or?
No, I went to seminary. I'm communications. I was a communications degree. I was in the theater too. Can you believe that?
You were in the theater?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I could act. I could act
really?
I could act like an idiot. Yeah. Well, I think they took advantage of me. They wanted the crowds to come because they were going to put me in leotards and do some kind of Shakespeare, Pyramus and Thisbe, and they were going to make me the girl, playing the part. And so they did that to get more people in the seats, to come see that, pay to see me in leotards.
I'd pay to see that. That'd be funny.
Well, and then you had an actor who played on the other side of me. He was in all the Ocean 11 movies, whatever.
Really?
Yeah, Jameson. Yeah, and
which one was he?
Oh gosh, I don't know the name. Now that you're asking me,
that's
on the
funny.
Spot. Yeah, he.
But his name was Jameson.
Yeah, his last name. Yeah, we called each other by our last names.
I'll have to look for him.
Yeah. We'll have to figure that out once we go look at.
I'll find it. I'll try to find him on like IMDb or something and put it over.
He was the guy that did that. Dr. Lowenowitz, I presume. He was that. He did those commercials. But anyway, Jimmy Jameson. Gosh, that's been a long time ago, man.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I did
awesome.
some of those. I did Arsenic and Olace. I was Teddy in that. Isn't that funny? I just
I don't think anybody that knows you would guess.
Well, they wouldn't guess that I dove on a diving team either.
That's
they think
true.
I'm full of it, which I am most of the time. But, and so I loved it, man. I got a kick out of it. And
yeah.
Also did radio, the radio station there. They had one, and loved that.
On campus.
Mm-hmm. And so I loved that. I had my name was Cajun Ken Cooper on FM 93. Yes. Oh, yeah. Y'all be careful driving home because your mom would want you to. Listen to this as you're on your way home.
That's awesome.
So, tell your recipe how to make some squirrel sauce pecan.
Did you have one of those like deep, I love to listen to myself talk type of voices?
No, I don't know. I have no idea.
That's awesome.
I don't even know, so, but I had a great time down there, so I love my degree.
Yeah.
I was in the religion department down there at first.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why didn't you like it?
Too religious.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. I'm a different cut, I guess. And I just wanted to be the communication side of it. I never did get into the, always wanted to be in a movie, that kind of thing. That was always one of my dreams. And, I was in one.
Yeah.
I was an extra, of course.
Were you?
Yeah.
Which movie was it?
Oh gosh. It was with, Robert Duvall, The Apostle.
No kidding.
Yeah. I was in The Apostle. And my kids were too. They were playing on the playground. We were out at the park. That's where he hits the youth minister with the bat, the baseball bat in that scene. He wouldn't recognize me. I had no beard, it was kind of in jean shorts, So
heck yeah,
kind of dates me a little bit. But I got a paycheck. I got the script.
Yeah.
And I got my picture with old Robert Duvall. I call him Bobby. We're on a personal level.
You got your name in the credits?
That's right. I did all the sound effects, like the breathing heavy, running around the bases and hitting the baseball,
Heck yeah.
Or the softball. It was a softball. But I had my youth group and he had used, that's another story for another time. But yeah, so I've just, all the things I've always desired, it seemed like God really allowed me to experience those things. Now I don't care to do it again. I mean, the movie part, it's enough.
Sure.
But so it's been good. So, and we haven't really gotten a legacy yet, but so student ministry for 13 years and loved student ministry. And then, in Lafayette, and then really needing to change, I was ready to do something different, see, and I needed to be challenged a little bit. And, the Lord gave me an opportunity to come to Waco, Texas.
So how did that come about?
Mike Toby, one of the former youth pastors of our church, growing up, we had quail hunted together. When I come see my brother lives about an hour from me, hour and 20 minutes in a town called Dublin, Texas, and so I would go visit him, and they had back then when we were first doing that, they had a lot of quail, and my brother's name is Mike too, but my brother Mike Toby, he had quail dogs, and so we'd quail hunted, and so we would talk, and he would keep track of the ministry that I was doing, and then just said he had a job he thought I would be good for here in Waco, and did not want to come to Waco. I did not want to leave South Louisiana. That's my people group, man.
Yeah,
and it was a culture shock, to be honest with you.
How old were you?
I guess I was in my 30s. Yeah,
so you were established over in Lafayette.
Yeah, I was. And, it's just, I didn't understand why God would lead me to Waco.
Yeah.
But out of obedience, it was 2 or 3 times I told him I didn't want to come. Even the search committee for this position, associate pastor's position over at the church was, one of the ladies said, became dear friends with us later, and husband too as well. She said, after we interviewed you sound like you really don't want to come here to Waco. And I go, yes, ma'am, I really don't want to come. She said, you don't? I said, no, I really don't. So she goes home and tells her husband about the whole story. And he said, what do we do with a guy like this? And he said, hire him. And so I ended up coming to Waco. Of course, that's where the Lord, obviously had his hand on it. It didn't make sense to me then. It does now. It's very clear. And so I started doing the work over at the church, but then just really was not happy about, or just fulfilled or satisfied, or whatever you want to call it. I just didn't feel like I was using the gifts that God had given me. And my mom obviously said, how come you're not doing men's ministry? And I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, men follow you. Men are, you in your life, you've always, led things. And so why wouldn't you do a men's ministry? It was God using my mom to speak to me.
Yeah.
And I thought, and then I had 2 guys here in town. I began to have a vision of this ministry, Legacy Outfitters. And, I was ready to get outside the church not to leave the church. Again, I'm a champion for the local church because I believe that's where we need to be. So in any way, shape, or form, whatever I say is not negative toward the local church. But I don't think when you're not using your gifts and you're not in the right fit, you're not going to be where God, God wanted me there at the time, but He was getting me here
Sure.
so He could do something with me later. And so,
how did you go from, I know I want to be in ministry, to this is a ministry that is not affiliated with a local church, but it has outdoors?
Well, I didn't know that. I mean, that was something that was totally, the Lord said, get outside of the church and do this men's ministry. And what men's ministry? Well, I don't know. I'm going to give you the tools that you need. And He did. He's prepared me since I was 17 on this direction.
How so? What's the biggest example of the way the Lord prepared you for this?
Well, that's a great question. And the answer I will tell you is, when I was 17 years old, right before I surrendered to the ministry, there was a guy named Brian in one of my classes, and we had a big senior class, about 500, I guess, maybe 400 to 500, something like that.
That's a big class.
Yeah, and so he and I struck up an interest. He wasn't a guy to play football or worked out with or anything like that, but he loved to hunt, and so we would talk hunting all the time whenever we got to different classes that we had. And then one day he invited me to go hunting with him, duck hunt with him. And I felt like this was an opportunity to share my faith, and obviously he was struggling over some things. And so he had said, he said, there's a peace about you and a calmness about you. And what is that all about? And I began to share with him.
Yeah.
So that morning I picked him up and we were going down to a duck hunt down in the marshes in South Louisiana. And I can't remember the town, but it was about an hour south of New Orleans. But as we were going, we struck up this conversation, said he told me he was struggling and needed to know what to do. And he thought maybe I may have the answer. And I just said, I will tell you this, that the peace comes from knowing Christ and, believing in the Lord. And he said, well, I believe in Jesus. I said, I understand that, but the demons in hell believe. Not enough to believe, but you got to receive Him. You got to accept Him as your Savior and to recognize your sinfulness. And so we began to say, nobody's ever talked to me like that. Nobody's ever shared that with me. And I said, would you love to receive Christ? He said, I would. And so we pulled over that side of the road that day, and we're on our way. We pulled over, and he prayed and trusted Christ. And, so I was pretty excited. I was pumped. And then I was thinking my fleshly ways, man, God's going to reward us with the greatest duck hunt of all time. It's going to be ducks going to be coming like manna coming out of the sky. It's far from it, man. It was only about one duck, It's like, it was the worst hunting. We got stuck in the marsh. We had to get out and get stuck in the mud. It was miserable. But the one thing that came away from it was the fact that Brian came to Christ, and so his life began to change.
Yeah.
And people were starting to say, hey, his change was because of this or that. Well, they had no idea. It was because Christ dwelled in him, the Holy Spirit. And so right after Christmas, we were getting back to class and back to school. And I was never a good student, so I didn't really like school. I was dyslexic and just miserable. But I did love going because I'm social.
You're a people person.
I just like to hang around, mess with people and stuff. So mess with the teachers as well. They like messing with me too, So it goes back and forth. But before we started today, when we got back, the principal said, please rise for the morning prayer. We were able to pray at that time in school. And I pray for Brian, was killed in a hunting accident.
Shit.
And so right there, I was just, I was taken back.
Yeah.
I was taken back, and it just. But then again, the Lord reminded me. I mean, I was crying, man. I was just in deep tears, and I don't know if that homeroom class that I was in was just shocked at the fact I was weeping. Here's a starting fullback, captain of the football team. What is he doing crying?
Yeah.
And yet I knew that That was one of the Bible verses I learned, I'm not an overachiever, but I did learn that one. Jesus
wept.
Yeah. And so I did remember that. And I knew it was okay, and I never apologized for it. I was genuinely, saddened by the loss. And so that as I walked through that,
I bet you never forgot that.
No, it's been part, but that's the seed, that planted Legacy Outfitters, because, I didn't know it then, but that's the seed, because it was something that we had this in common.
Mm.
And this wasn't at a church building or church. And so, this was something that sometimes we have to go outside the church to reach people. Just because we build these buildings or just because we have church doesn't mean people are going to come.
Right. Or it doesn't necessarily mean that if they're there that they've surrendered their life to Christ either.
Correct. And they're just possibly looking for something, or this is something they think they should do.
Right.
And so, so when you fast forward that was a part of my life. I've shared that story. I'm glad that God put that on my heart. I'm glad that, that moment wasn't squandered, but it became a blessing in my life, to know that, one day he's going to be there to greet me, I can only envision him at 17 years old. I don't know what he would, would look like, but anyway, that's another talk.
Maybe you're going to be your 180-pound diving self in heaven.
That's what I'm counting on. That's why I told my wife, when I die, cremate me, just so there's no way I get this body back. I'm tired of being short and fat, so anyway, so when my mom tells me that, and to go back to that part of the story, I began to think, what possibly can I do? And the Lord said, do the gifts that I've given you, evangelism and your passion for the outdoors.
Yeah.
And so I could put those together.
Mm-hmm.
I can hunt and fish every day. Of course, that never happened, but that's what I was thinking. I don't know if the Lord was kind of, putting the carrot out in front of me, or the gumbo in front of me. I don't know, whatever. And so the Lord, so I stepped out of the church out of obedience and faith, and then started to put this together. But God put some great men around me in this area, all businessmen. And so grateful for their input, but God had prepared them too to help me. Mm-hmm. And then stepped out and then started it. And we've never looked back.
Yeah.
I mean, the first year people were coming from other cities saying, "Hey, can we do this in our town?" I'm like, yeah, I guess so. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough for all that. I needed people to help me to figure all that out.
What did that look like when you started it? Like, obviously you're new to Legacy. You're not new to the ministry necessarily, but you're new to Waco. Mm-hmm. All your relationships, most of your relationships are in South Louisiana. Yeah. So what did that look like, kind of jumping into this new ministry, being new to the town, new to the community, new to the ministry? Mm-hmm. What did that look like?
Well, it's just like anything else, you start and everybody is excited about something new, mm-hmm. and then it kind of dwindles down because it, been there, done that, and then you start to work, and then you start to build it up, it's all relational. Yeah, there's no really secret to any kind of ministry or business, to be honest with you. I just, we want to teach all these different ways. It's all about being kind and loving people and just be relational. Mm-hmm. My wife doesn't send me to the store, the grocery store, to buy anything or 2 or 3 items because she knows it's going to take me a couple hours because I'm on there visiting. I'm the mayor of HEB, brother. I can't help it. You see people, hey. And so you invite people and they see you, and so, and then they see me wearing LSU stuff. Hey, man, hey, go Tigers, or who dat with the Saints stuff. And then you just strike up conversations. And then, one guy comes to it and they go, man, this was great. And then they invite, they trust you. And then when they bring their friends, it means they trust you. Yeah. That you've earned their trust.
Absolutely.
So I think it's to be honest, it's all God's favor. It's nothing that we do. Yeah. When to get down to it, because I don't really think about it as much, but when we talk about it, like you brought that up, I go back and go, I still, after 21, 22 years, when we have our monthly meetings and stuff, the legacy meetings, I still marvel at the fact that these people come. People come, men come.
Yeah.
And I'm going, man, And so I'm just grateful that God had given me that ministry. He gave the desires of my heart. It's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in the outdoors, and I wanted to get men back into the local church. So our whole premise is encouraging men to be better husbands, better fathers, and be the men God called us to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get them back into the local churches, and not one particular church here in town, but all the churches.
Yeah.
And to hope we get these guys to go. But a lot of guys have been hurt by churches, and listen, our churches do a great job with our women and children, but they do not do a great job with our men. And I don't know why that is when the men are the ones that we need to be.
What do you mean when you say that?
Well, they have programs, they have all kinds of things for the women and children. Okay, teenagers, they do a great job with that too as well. But when it comes to men, what does most churches have? Maybe a prayer breakfast.
Yeah.
Come on. I don't want to get up on a Saturday morning and go eat breakfast. I mean, I do want to eat breakfast, but I want to go on the way to hunting or fishing or doing something.
Right.
But I just don't want to go. But why wouldn't you use these men's passions to build different things? And that's kind of what we've done. Now, look, I'm not criticizing. I just wish that they would.
Sure.
Because I'm thriving right now because men are hungry.
Yeah.
To learn how to lead their families.
Yeah.
And so we need our churches to step up and hire men's ministers and have them come in and do stuff. I need to dwindle. I'm fine with that. There's enough. And again, with Legacy Outfitters, we're not really going after the church guys anyway. We're going after the unchurched, the ones that struggle going to church and or been hurt by it, or we're trying to get them back healthy again, so that they'll go back into the churches.
I think even just in our relationship with God, it can't be just this nebulous thing that we kind of talk about, but it doesn't really have any power. And it's the same thing with men's relationships. I think we're a community of men. Find power is when they're together, or when they're encouraging one another, or when they're calling each other higher, confessing where they're at, so that they don't feel like they're alone on some island somewhere, or the only one struggling with alcoholism or pornography or whatever. Or I was hurt when I was a kid because I was molested or beaten or whatever.
Correct.
And a lot of men. I remember when we were at one of those retreats, there was a speaker that said 5 in 8 men have been in some way either sexually or physically abused as a child. And that blew my mind. That statistic was staggering.
Yeah.
But men don't talk about that because there's this
sign of weakness.
Yeah, exactly. Like we can't show weakness. We can't ask for help. We have to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And that's where we reach our breaking point, because it's impossible.
Right.
And so we turn to alcohol, drugs, women, everything.
We try to fix it, and we can't fix it. We men think we're just fixers. We want to fix everything, but you can't.
Yeah.
You can't fix that.
Yeah.
Only Christ can fix that.
Yeah.
I can't fix it, and I can't fix it for you. Only Jesus can fix it.
Well, most of the time, Jesus will use the men in our life.
Correct.
Or the people in our life.
Correct.
And the Holy Spirit will use those people to influence, impact, encourage, comfort us in some capacity.
And that's Legacy Outfitters. We walk with guys going through struggles of a season in their life, and we help them go through that. We walk with them through it. And so it's really Legacy. If you would ask me, so what is Legacy Outfitters? It's a grassroots discipleship. It's as simple as that. It's not, we're not a service organization, and we're not organization that is just about hunting and fishing. Really, we use hunting and fishing as the tool. Yeah. It's the commonality that we have and that we use, because that's our passions, and we love doing it, and we love hunting and fishing, and we love being in the outdoors. But it's also about teaching men how to have spiritual conversation. Yeah, and opening up and talking about their hurts. And we weren't created to walk this journey alone. No, and so men need to understand that. Our dads back in the day, they had some thriving organizations big men got together. There's a great need for men to get together.
Yeah.
And so you don't see that as much as you did at one time or another.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I wish that the churches would see the need for a strong men's ministry.
Yeah.
But I'm not called to go in that direction. I'm called to get the men out of into church.
Yeah.
And then hopefully the churches will begin to see that great need.
Sure.
Into discipling, continue to disciple. But that's what we're doing, man. We're discipling men and helping them along the way.
Yeah.
It takes longer, and it's a lot more time consuming.
Yeah.
But it's to me is what's worth it.
It also has a bigger impact.
Yeah, and I guess because I was discipled. I understand what discipleship looks like and means because I was discipled by some great men.
Yeah.
Men of faith, and I was very fortunate. So.
Yeah.
And maybe our pastors have never been discipled themselves, so they don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. When, you mentioned that your mom was a spiritual leader of the household. At what point did your dad become a Christian, and how did that kind of shift the dynamic in the house?
At 27, he came to the Lord at 27 years old. And at that point, he began to be present at church with us, and then started taking that role.
Yeah.
And leading the prayer, for mealtime and stuff. He was that,
Yeah.
But made sure that we were in church, making sure that we were going to the things that were making an impact on our lives.
Yeah.
So it was a subtle change. I mean, it wasn't overnight.
Yeah.
And of course I was still young, but I did notice.
Yeah.
I did notice. And it did make a difference.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He was king of Mardi Gras in 1968.
Wait, like literally king of Mardi Gras? What?
For the crew of Toth. And it's some kind of mythical. I don't have no idea what it was. But it was, and he was the king, and he had just come to Christ. And we rode that parade on a Sunday because my brother and I were pages, and we were throwing all. My dad bought enough beads and doubloons and stuff for us to last 3 parades, and we ran out halfway. It was so much fun. I'll never forget that. But we had to wear wigs and lipstick, look like pages, and I didn't like that. People were, hey, miss, I ain't no miss. I'm a mister. Throw them. And they had glass beads back then. Those were check beads, man. I mean, they were heavy. They weren't them plastic beads, man. And so, man, you just chunk a dozen of those beads and hitting people in the head. That was kind of fun too. But and so, but the point of it, the story is that that night he was in church. That night he was in church because it just wind burned and tired and exhausted, but yeah, he was in church because he knew it was important to be there.
Man, Louisiana is a very spiritually dark place, and when you look at things like what's that street, the big street that's down there in
Bourbon Street?
Yeah, Bourbon Street. Like my wife and I, we walked down Bourbon Street once when we were on vacation.
Hold your nose. It stinks.
Yeah, oh my gosh. But it was crazy. Like people were trying to pull us into like, I don't know if they were brothels or what. I don't know what they were, but they were like, I know, like I just kept out like, no, we just kept it moving. It was very uncomfortable. There was a lot of voodoo type stuff. It was just it was something that it was like, well, I mean, I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we experienced it.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot more to Louisiana than this. But it was just, and the things that I've seen on TV, that you see some stuff where they're doing some, some spiritually dark stuff, some witchcraft stuff, some voodoo stuff.
Oh, it's going on. It goes on.
Is there a lot of spiritual oppression there?
Oh, sure there is.
Yeah.
Sure there is. But, we really didn't encounter that in the 60s, 70s. I mean, it was churches were thriving in that era.
Really?
Oh, yeah. In big youth groups everywhere. Churches were thriving. People were going to church. The Southern Baptist churches were really thriving. That's a pretty Catholic town.
Yeah.
Well, it is a Catholic town. And yet, I mean, in other words, if I was take a rock here in Waco and throw it, I'd hit 10 Baptist churches.
Of course.
Okay. Take that same rock, throw it in South Louisiana, and you're going to hit 10 Catholic churches. So it's opposite. And, which is fine.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm getting at is that, but God, with the oil industry, brought Southern Baptists or men of faith from all those churches. They came and they flocked in because of the oil business.
Interesting.
And so, God had to have a hand in that.
Sure.
And then brought that about. But they were thriving. So New Orleans wasn't you'd go down to Jackson Square back then. It was fun. The parades were fun. You go on the neutral ground and have eat Popeye's chicken and, man, have a great time.
Yeah.
And I said neutral ground, people, you looked at me kind of funny. It's a median. That's not a median where the lady does the median card to a median, but it's what divides the two highways.
I gotcha.
We call that a neutral ground. I don't know. It's just what we always call it. So I don't know what a median. No, is that lady trying to get in your head? No, it's a neutral ground. The ground is neutral, I guess. I have no idea why, but yeah. So for me, you saw the spiritualism was up, and then you can see it started to drop off.
So a lot of that stuff that I just mentioned, is that more recent?
Yes. Oh, no. This is. I could see the decline even as a teenager in the late 80s. I mean,
late 70s.
Probably the 80s.
Really,
late 80s, and all that stuff started changing over, and people started to.
What brought that stuff in? How would it go from such a religiously kind of bright
I don't know if
place?
it was ever a spiritual religious town. Okay, now I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
but I'm saying I wasn't aware of all those things.
Gotcha.
Every time we would go to Bourbon Street when people came to visit and wanted to go see it. I don't remember. I don't remember all that stuff. It was there. Yeah. And but when you go back, I sense what you were talking about, the darkness. It's just it's I don't think the churches have the. I don't know. They may get mad at me and they say, "Well, you're not down here," and they're right. So I really can't really answer that. To be honest with you, but I just know that during those times, man, the churches were thriving.
Yeah,
a lot of big youth groups, a lot of guys, a lot of folks going into ministry, and in our church alone, we probably got in that span. We're in our student ministry. We probably have 30, 40 kids that came out of that church and doing full-time ministry.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, I understand what you're talking about. We don't, when we go down to New Orleans, people say, "Hey, where does the restaurant you eat at? Where's the best places?" Mom's house. I don't know the restaurants, because why would I go eat there when I could eat at home for free? Yeah. And my mom was a great cook.
Probably much better food.
Oh, 10 times. Yeah. But we did eat out, and I do have a few places we did go, but for the majority of it, people from South Louisiana are very, once you get to know them, man, they very inviting. Yeah. Like if I meet somebody from New Orleans, we become best friends. Just we could be on vacation and we have so much to talk about.
Oh, sure.
It's like, hey, we start talking about everything and the landmarks and all that stuff. It's fun. Yeah. And
well, and like you said, that was your joint. You grew up there. You were so passionate about it. So other people that have that same experience, you connect instantly.
But I had people ask, "Man, I was down there, man. It smelled." Well, yeah, they're peeing and urinating over everything, and they're drunk and they're drinking. What do you think it's going to smell like?
Sure.
And so I never experienced that. We never went down there at night. Yeah. We always went during the day, if we wanted to go. And so we avoided those places. We avoided those streets. Yeah. So, but I'm sure all that was going on.
Yeah, but there's amazing places. Yeah. Like I know my dad and my stepmom, they go to Louisiana. I wouldn't say often, but they've been, and they just rant and rave about the plantations and how beautiful some of the architecture is. And, there's some really awesome places to go out there.
There is. Yeah. And it, just like South Louisiana, I thrive because I love to hunt and fish. And it's just, it's paradise.
How often you go back?
A matter of fact, I'm probably going in a couple of weeks to fish. Yeah. I love fishing down there. Red fishing, my favorite. Probably my all-time favorite is catching redfish with a gold spoon in the marsh. in 2 foot of water.
Yeah.
10 pounders. Oh gosh, they got some shoulders on them, and that line just screams. You know, zzz, 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 zzz. That's my favorite sound. You
Heck
know?
yeah.
So, yeah, and then, we go back on occasion, but not as often as we used to.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, we're not going back as much. My father's passed. My mom is living with my sister. So in Mississippi, so we really don't have there's not for us to go. What is there for us to go to?
Sure.
So
where'd you meet your wife?
I met her she grew up on the west bank of Louisiana. There's an east bank and a west bank, which separates, the Mississippi River. I lived on the best bank. She lived on the worst bank. So, I met her. I was speaking I was a senior in high school, and they'd asked me to give my testimony at this big retreat, this big citywide retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And when I spoke, she saw me in the crowd, and the Lord just said, you're gonna get to know him. And I told her it's just because she saw me playing football with my shirt off later. She said, "Ain't nothing to do with it." I said, "Oh yeah, come on." And so, but so I went and worked at her church. She was, I guess I was just finished my freshman year in college,
Mm-hmm.
and that summer I went to be a summer intern, and so she was a student. She was like a junior, going to be a senior. And, I kind of, she was cute, and I had a crush on her a little bit, but, I was working, and I didn't pursue anything and didn't say nothing, that would have been wrong. But when I left, I knew her grandparents lived in Jackson, Mississippi, when I was going to school, and to say, hey, if you're ever in town, call me, and so, but that never worked out which is fine, she wasn't ready, and I wasn't ready, so, I was going to say something stupid, but I said, no, better not. She may listen to this. That's kind of why I've kind of paused a little bit, but let me make sure I get the real story and not the truth and not the one that's in my head. But I needed a summer intern. I was a full-time student minister in Lafayette, Louisiana. And I hired girls to come and help me, with the girls.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would hire college students. And I wasn't far from, I wasn't that old. But I hired, with her youth minister said, hey, have you hired all your summer interns yet? And I said, no. He said, what do you think about, my wife, Chrisanne? I said, oh, she'd do great. And so I called her and told her that, I had a position open, and she came. And when we first met, it didn't take long. I knew this is who Lord wanted for me. We prepared my heart before even she came. And I think we got 2 weeks into the summer, and I already asked her to marry me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we never dated. I don't recommend that to everybody, but I always tell her, I said, if we'd have dated, you'd have never married me. You took a chance. You jumped a leap of faith. And so, but that's kind of how we met, and doing student ministry.
How old were you?
Oh gosh, man. I was 24.
24?
Yeah, 23, 24.
How old is she?
She's, you're talking about, well, she's a couple of years younger than me. So probably 2 years.
22,
yeah.
21, 22.
Yeah. So, and, she was born in, I better not say that either. I'm going to get me in trouble, Dino. So, and so that's kind of my story as far as how we got here. And then we had 3 kids, I got, they're all out of the house and working, and I've got 3 grandchildren. And I've come to understand, grandchildren are awesome, but that's our reward for not killing our kids. God gave us that, gave us grandkids. Hey, you didn't kill them, so let me give you some grandkids. If we'd have known that, nobody would have kids. Just give me the grandkids. But they're all doing great.
Heck yeah,
love the Lord and doing ministry.
They're all 3 of them.
Well, they're going to church and and being active, and so
I know your son is. What's your son's name?
Hunter.
Hunter.
Yeah.
I know him, and he's a part of Legacy.
Yeah, he comes to Legacy and hangs out with us there.
Yeah.
You know, he comes to hear me preach on occasion. Comes hear old pops.
Yeah.
You know. So he seems to enjoy it when I. But I never really talk about my kids and when I'm preaching.
Yeah.
You know, I don't use them as illustrations. I want them to come. They don't use me in their illustrations either, so, which is good.
So what was it like for your wife when you told her, hey, look, I think the Lord is calling us out to Waco, Texas?
Well, she was ready to go.
Was she?
Oh yeah. I mean, wasn't that she didn't like Lafayette? Yeah, her dad's in oil, and so they moved a lot.
So you used to moving around.
Yeah, she was like antsy because it's like, this is the longest she's lived anywhere.
Yeah.
Which was with me 13 years in Lafayette. And she's like, oh yeah, we get to move. All right. And I'm thinking, and not me. I mean, I just as soon throw everything away and start over. I don't want to move any stuff. You know? I mean, that's
kind of like my wife and I.
I'm just get to a place and let me just, grow and I never wanted to leave South Louisiana, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad he did. I would have never experienced what he had for me.
Yeah.
This was his plan. And just like he's got a plan for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful. It makes so much sense today. Love Texas, and I just thought, I needed to come to Texas to help give them some culture on food, teach them what a jambalaya and gumbo is. I mean, how do you not know the difference between a gumbo and a jambalaya? Here we go. Jambalaya is dry. It is not liquid. Okay. A gumbo is liquid. Yeah. So, and they say, oh, you got some jambalaya. That's gumbo. How do you not know that? Oh my gosh. But anyway, it's, so yeah, that's why I'm here to educate and feed Texans.
I've seen it firsthand at the Legacy Monday nights where you guys cook for 100 men.
Yeah.
It's very impressive. Yeah.
And it's a labor of love. I mean, we love cooking and love feeding.
Yeah.
I always tell the guys, look, man, the meal's the most important. If we don't get that right, they're not coming back. Because you can have if you have a bad meal and a bad speaker, or let's say the other way around. If you have a bad speaker but you had a good meal, you'll get them to come back.
For sure.
But if you have a bad meal and a bad speaker, they're not coming back. No.
Yeah.
We don't serve kiddie food at our place, man. We do real men food.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Well, and that cook team that y'all got with Legacy is
incredible.
Amazing. They're amazing.
They're incredible.
Yeah.
They're all, and so I'm the only, well, no, there's me and Butch. We're the only two outside, foreigners, on the cook team. So.
So what does an average year for Legacy look like? Take me through the season starting in January. Like, what do you guys do? What kind of outings do you guys do? I mean, what do the guys have to look forward to?
Well, January is kind of getting, a lot of them are getting finished with their hunting season, coming to a close of deer season, and their duck season is still going on. And you still got a few other things that we're hunting, geese and sandhill cranes and things like that. But as far as ministry goes, we're normally just going through, we have our chili cook-off in February, but in January, we're just kind of, finishing up all that. And it's not, we don't book hunts, and we have a pro staffer that will, help you with hunts and stuff, but it's really not our main focus,
So is that mainly just like the guys that have a passion for hunting or bow hunting or something like that? Right. They'll get together and they'll go do that with each other.
Well, a lot of times they have their own private places they go, and, so they go off to do that.
Yeah.
But, and then February, at the end of February, we have our major, our national retreat.
Yeah.
All the chapters come together. And,
how many chapters are there?
I looked at it the other day. I know there's 12 that are really healthy and doing good, and there's probably about a few more that's just kind of struggling. So about 16 chapters, I guess. And then from that February, we have that retreat, and that's kind of what we gear up for.
Yeah.
And then we have in the spring we have a father-son camp out, father-daughter camp outs separate. We do that, and we try to do those things and encourage encourage, their dads to spend time
Yeah.
with their kids. And we kind of put that together for them.
Yeah.
And but we have our main monthly meeting, which takes place on the second Monday for 16 and 17 years or older guys. And we put a program on. And then outside of that monthly meeting, they have focus groups. We call them focus groups for whatever reason. There's an archery group, and they get together and shoot once a month. And then there's a shotgun group. There's a pistol rifle group. There's a cook team. There's a Bible study group that meet.
Yeah.
And so you have, we have a bass club, which is really competitive. It's really good. So it's a good club. And so, you have about 6 or 7 of these things that they go to during the month. And that's where they learn and grow too. We have fire pit topic or fire pit question. And then all of them are on the same page where, we're talking about a certain word, maybe if it's on forgiveness and how well do you forgive?
Yeah.
How do you, and this month it's on how well do you wait on when God tells you to wait? How do you do during the wait? And stuff like that. So, and so that's kind of typical month from each month. And then for me, I visit the chapters, like I'll be in Utopia. They have their chapter meeting. They're our newest chapter.
Yeah.
And they meet, they're running about 30 guys in a town of 200. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
It's a neat place.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so I just like the name, the sound, hey, where are you going? Utopia. What is that? I don't know, but I'm going to Utopia. It's just a cool word, cool name. It's over there by Hondo. That's another cool name. Got some cool town names over
Hondo
there.
reminds me of Married with Children.
Yeah. And so anyway, so those things are always constantly going.
Yeah.
Trying to, and then our groups sometimes mix up with other chapters. Like our shotgun group, they'll get together and invite another chapter, maybe say from the Belton Temple area or from Gatesville or somewhere.
Yeah.
Say, hey, we're getting together and shooting skeet. Why don't you come be a part of that?
Heck yeah.
And then they'll go off and do that. And, we have archery tournaments and we have shotgun tournaments on occasion. And we, so we're just doing different things.
Yeah, I've seen some at the retreat. There was an Annie Oakley little tournament.
Yeah.
And then I don't think it was a tournament, but it was really cool to set up that y'all had a couple trucks and then you had the big, the machine that was throwing out the pigeons, a guy on each side and then a guy calling it.
Right.
And that was really cool.
Yeah, that was kind of for the ones that wanted to learn and they were teaching them the basics of, shooting clay pigeons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And then it's a lot of the guys love guys who first time archery guys say, I don't know anything about archery. Never killed a deer. Well, come on with me. I'll show you. And they're really good about it. They don't, the only people that make fun of is me. If I do something, One time I brought a football helmet to the archery. I put the football helmet on to shoot my bow. They were all laughing. I said, try it. They put it on. They couldn't do it. Because there's an anchor point on your cheek.
Yeah.
Yeah, which you pull back and they couldn't do it. They couldn't hit nothing, man, with it. It was so funny. Throw them all. It's funny with the football helmet on. I'm not sure who came up with that idea. I don't know what it was.
That's super random.
Oh, but it was just funny, man. It's just so we do stupid stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're dudes, man.
You got to keep it light though.
Oh yeah.
I think that's one of the special things about Legacy is that it's not a group of religious guys that are constantly, bringing. It's one thing to confess your sin and to encourage somebody or, admonish somebody. But, when that's all you get when you go to your men's groups, then it gets a little exhausting.
Yeah.
So to be able to have a group where you can connect with other men and you can have those relationships and you can build that trust and you can build that mutual respect for one another, I guess. Where when those things do come up, that you're talking to somebody that actually cares,
right?
And that you've experienced stuff with. You've gone out and you've laughed, you've eaten, you've shared some special hunting stories or fishing moments with, and not that we need to have all those things in order to be able to take some advice or be able to be called higher, but at the end of the day, those relationships and being able to trust one another is what makes legacy so special.
I tell guys all the time, get off the couch, because if you stay on the couch, you're not going to have any memories to share.
Right.
But of course now we tell them, get off the bench. Quit sitting on the bench. I don't think believers were meant to sit on the bench. We're out to be serving each other and serving others in the community. So that's kind of what we've been doing.
Heck yeah.
It's been great, man. I never knew that it was going to go or how many chapters. And people say, well, how many more chapters? Well, I don't mark it for chapters.
Right.
But I did tell Lord, way back, Lord, whoever you send, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'm not limited in, but I'm not going out and marking it, and trying to put one in every town.
Right.
It's just wherever the Lord raises them up.
For sure. Where's the farthest one from here?
Colorado.
Nice. So there's one in Colorado.
There's one in Colorado and one in Memphis. Gotta have one in Elvistown, man. Memphis.
My wife was just in it's right outside of Knoxville. I can't put my finger on it, but she was there for work, and one of the outings was they were going and shooting trap.
Oh, good.
And so she was like, should I do it? I'm like, yes, you should do it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so she went out there and she shot with all the guys and had a great time, and said that she actually shot a lot better than a lot of the guys. And it was cool.
That. Yeah.
It's a pretty place out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trap is different from skeet. Skeet comes from the high house and low house, and then the trap is out in front of you.
Yeah.
And trap could be a long distance shot.
Yeah.
Before you can get on that bird. So yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting. But that's cool. So, and how many, so a majority of the chapters are right here in Texas. So.
Most of them are in Texas. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you foresee? Is there anything that the Lord has put on your heart for the future legacy?
Well, it's interesting you'd ask that question, because this past Monday we had our monthly meeting, and a lot of our young guys led that meeting, and I went away with it very encouraged that our legacy outfitters got a bright future.
Raising up a new generation.
Yeah, we got a great generation of guys that are ready to step in. They're our age when we started it.
Yeah.
And so, man, I'm excited about that, and I'll turn it over to them when they're ready.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's the whole idea, is to leave a legacy.
Heck yeah.
So I'm excited about that. But and then I'll get on another part of that platform of developing and helping. I don't think I was ever meant to retire, so we'll wait and see.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm ready for these young guys to
Heck yeah.
to go when God tells us.
What do you think? Just kind of being, not getting specific, but what do you think is some of the biggest things that in society in general right now? I mean, what do you think is some of the biggest things that we need to address as men to make our society a little more healthy?
Well, I just think that is sharing the gospel, man. I mean, that's the only thing that can fix anybody, is through a relationship with Christ, and to just share the gospel about there's a special relationship with the living God, Jesus Christ, to help you walk through the journey.
Yeah.
And and then the other part of it would be is to encourage men to get off the bench.
Yeah.
Quit sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
Go be present in your life of your wife. Go be present with your kids, and go be present in your church, your local church. And and so men got to start talking to men the way men should talk to men. Quit pacifying everything. Let's be direct.
Yeah.
Let's quit moving around the subject. And so there's plenty enough guys who are not meeting the needs of their families, and I believe we're all called to be priests of our homes.
Absolutely.
And we're not doing it. We're not doing a good job of that.
Yeah.
And look, it's a struggle. I mean, it's tough. I'm not saying it's easy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I didn't sit on the bench for a while.
Sure.
I'm not saying any of those things. I know what it's like, but again, I hate sitting on the bench for any amount of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then there's a battle cry for our older, wiser generation to say, look, guys, we're turned it over to the young guys. No. We need you to continue to mentor.
Yeah.
And your time is not up. Your time is up when you die.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need our that generation of wisdom to help walk.
Absolutely.
Because listen, I'm still learning from these young guys, man. They're teaching me. And but yet we've lived life a little bit longer, and so all of us have been through every situation that they're going to go through.
Yeah.
You know, the group of guys.
Yeah.
And so let's pour into each other.
Yeah.
You know, let's quit, old guys quit talking about the weather, man. And let's, start having some spiritual conversations with these young guys, because they appreciate it more than they think they know. And we've got a good group of guys, older guys in our ministry, when we say Legacy Outfitters, and man, they are doing a great job mentoring our young guys.
Yeah.
And our young guys are doing a great job of listening.
Yeah.
And acting like they don't know it all. They're just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's been really good. But that's what it is. I mean, it takes us all to get out there and be a part.
Yeah.
But I guess sometimes we think, oh, I'm tired and I'm exhausted and I've done everything. No, you're okay.
Yeah.
You got to get back out there. Look, men need a purpose.
Yeah.
And men need to know that they're needed. And I'm telling you, you need it.
Mm-hmm.
They're needed, and they need to be doing something.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot to do. Okay, so you're not doing the main thing. You're not leading it. So that's okay. But you get behind the scenes and help where it's needed.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where, as I'm approaching that wisdom years, I guess I'm approached it. I have no idea. I've been, so I don't know what that cutoff is. When I
don't think there is a cutoff. I think you've lived life, you're still living life. And I think there's a lot of us, like you said, we haven't been to where you walked in the same shoes that y'all have walked in. And so to be able to have some humility and realize I don't know it all.
No, right.
I need help. I need some guidance.
Yeah.
I
mean, this is a tough generation coming up. Even the generation behind them. I mean, it's not easy coming up in this this world at the time that they're coming up.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of argument about what true masculinity really is. And people are afraid to say, hey, I want to be a masculine man. I want to be a guy that leads his family, who takes care of my wife, that takes care of my kids. A guy that's willing to say the truth regardless of whether or not I'm going to get canceled. And it's hard because society wants you to be quiet and not say those things.
Yeah. And so this is where we're at.
Yep.
But
I think the more encouragement that men can get, though, from especially the older generation who have kind of walked in those shoes, and who have that wisdom to be able to be like, a lot of this deception we're seeing is just noise. And a majority of the people out there want masculinity, healthy masculinity.
Yeah.
And I think that's, why we see a lot of the breakdown in, the kids and the schools and the generation that we're seeing right now, which, unfortunately, a lot of, violence takes place because fathers aren't in the home. There's a lot of poverty because fathers aren't in the home. There's a lot of juvenile and youth being detained because fathers aren't in the home. So,
or fathers not being present. They're home, but they're not
present. Right.
They've checked out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard to do too. And come home and you're tired and exhausted.
Yeah.
First thing you want to do is go sit on the couch and watch TV or something.
Sure.
That's not the first thing you should do.
Yeah.
You should take your shoes off first. Wife hits you in the back of the head. I just swept that floor. Oh, shoot.
Heck yeah. Well, man, is there anything else that you want to mention before we wrap this up?
No, I don't. I appreciate just a chance to talk about this stuff, and this is where I've been, and this is where I've seen that's been working for us.
Yeah.
And so we're just appreciative and grateful that God is really leading and guiding us. Because we couldn't have done this. We couldn't have got this far. We couldn't have even started without him. So we're thankful.
Yeah.
It's a simple concept. There's nothing difficult about Legacy Outfitters and what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's all relational. and just caring about people, loving people where they are.
That's right.
Not judging them.
Yeah.
You know, that's the one thing I really appreciate about this ministry. There's no judgment on each other.
Right.
You know, and
why? We're all broken people.
I know. And that's what I think they all see.
Yeah.
And so, but they're not judgmental at all, man. It's just, it's
awesome.
crazy, which is great. And that's what we want to be. And so I've been excited, proud about that.
Yeah.
You know, so they don't talk about, oh, such and such did this or something. They don't do that.
No.
You know, so what a refreshing.
That is super refreshing
to be around these guys.
Yeah.
Because they realize.
Yeah. We're all broken.
Yeah.
We all have our junk. You know, I honestly have a lot more respect for somebody who's willing to come out and say, hey, look, I struggle with this. I struggle with that.
Right.
Just because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how everybody else sees me.
Mm-hmm.
As long as my wife loves me and my family loves me,
right.
You know, and I'm telling the truth. And before my God, I'm like, hey, you know what? I got integrity. I really don't care what you think.
Right.
And this is who I am. This is what I've struggled with. And I think that there's a lot to be said about a man that's willing to do that.
Right. And you know, we don't wear the mask.
Mm-mm.
And I'm not talking about the COVID mask.
We don't wear those either.
We don't wear the mask. I mean, we're not pretending.
Yeah.
So, you know, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
You know, so we're just simple, ordinary guys.
Yeah.
Loving Jesus.
Yeah.
And letting Jesus use us in our simple way.
Yeah. And
that's through hunting and fishing. And you don't have to agree with hunting and fishing for us. It's okay. I get it. You don't get that. You know, it's all right. But this has been the tool that God has given me, the platform that given me to reach so many men through this avenue.
Right.
And so, you know, and the majority of the hunters and fishermen that come are doing great things with wildlife.
Yeah.
They respect it. You know, it's just not going out and just killing things.
Yeah.
Man, we if we're going out and harvesting things, we are sharing that as a meal.
Right.
That's one of my greatest loves is recipes for wild game.
Yeah.
You know, you give me any critter and I'll have a recipe for it.
Yeah.
You know, and so and love sharing that and saying, look, you know, people turn their nose to certain things. I said, you've never had it the way it's supposed to be properly prepared, you know?
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So once you do that, you go, oh man, that was good.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times I won't tell you what it is.
Yeah.
What is that? That's Himalayan. And then I'll think about it for a while. Himalayan. Himalayan on the ground. When we went by and we picked it up. So anyway.
I had a neighbor of mine drop by the house one day and he brought me probably like 10 pounds of some sort of deer meat. I forgot what it was. And we had never cooked it before, so we had no idea if we liked it, if we didn't like it.
Yeah.
This was probably 3 years ago. But it was amazing. You know, he told me, hey, cook it like this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is how my wife does it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think they hunted it on their ranch.
Yeah.
And man, it was such a blessing.
Yeah.
You know, so the fact that you can share that with other people in the community is awesome too.
And we have guys who will harvest deer and have plenty for themselves, but on their properties they need to harvest more, and they will donate that with their time, money, and energy for hungry places where they I can't remember the name of the organization. So, but organizations who'll take in food, and we usually ground it up, so they can make spaghetti and meatballs, and hamburger and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I think that's how he cooked it. It was Axis deer.
Oh gosh.
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Yeah. Well, tell him where I live. Well, thanks, man, for having me on and telling my story.
Yeah.
You know, we all got stories to tell.
We'll have to do this again. I want to hear some of those other stories.
Well, I got plenty of stories. Now, not all of them are true. But
a lot of them are funny though.
Yeah, a lot of them are true. I mean, a lot of them, they're kind of. We never let a lie get in the way of a good story.
All right, man.
Well,
thank you,
bud.
Jeff. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.